Why do you want them to listen to your podcast?
So that when they think about starting a business, they've got the content that is pointing them in the right direction.
That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
The change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
Welcome back to Aussie Lawn Stars, mate. It's good to see you.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for inviting me back. It's been a little while.
It has been a little while. I pinged you with a message probably a month and a half ago now, and it's like, hey, what do you think we talk about this topic? Now, what I've done, I've started trying to engage people more with the podcast. So people who listen to the podcast send me questions, and I try and get them to actually come on an interview to answer their own questions. But this particular question, I was like, this is a question for Clint. So the topic is basically along the lines of employing people. And Lawncare, as we've talked about on previous interviews, Lawncare is a low barrier to entry business. So a lot of people will start it going along the E-Myth line. They'll be the technician, they won't be the manager, they won't be the entrepreneur, they will just be the technician. But we get into this cycle of, I think I can employ somebody because I'm too busy, and then I realise that's not easy to do, and all of a sudden I've got to wear too many hats.
Yeah, okay.
So the question was thrown at me, why is it that people in lawn care either don't employ people or they grow, shrink? And when they get busy, they put somebody on, then they get rid of them?
I think there's probably, there's a lot of different answers to that question because obviously we're dealing with humans.
Yes.
And so the reason, in my experience, that people don't hire is control and the belief that no one will be able to do something as good as them. And
Yep.
I think the further into business you get, the more you realize that if it gets done to a certain level, so say 80% or 70% or 90% of how good you may have done it, and you've got 20 or 30 or even 4 people doing 80% of what you could have done, then it's better than you trying to do 4 people's jobs. And so it's probably an education piece more than anything, and just letting people know that in the world and everywhere else, and obviously in larger companies that are competing in the same space, most of the owners and managers are comfortable with the fact that the people that they're hiring are not going to do things as well as them, and they're willing to accept that and grow their business that way. The reality is anyone that's got the skill set to run their own business is likely going to run their own business. That's not completely true. I've got people that work for me that could run their own business and choose not to. But you're going to get people that are 80% as good as you around execution, but even just thought. So I think that's why people don't necessarily hire. And then I think the challenges after hiring can come from not clearly defining what you're actually needing to hire. I think in a lot of cases, someone that might work in a trade role has done so because they love the trade and they're an artist, and they love doing, garden maintenance or construction or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And then when they look to hire someone for their business, the first thing they go to is to hire someone to do that. And so they're kind of trying to scale their skills around the craft that they love, rather than looking at it and going, I'm actually spending probably 10 or 12 hours a week doing finance and administrative functions, which I hate. Maybe I should hire that role and free myself up to spend more time on the things that I actually enjoy or the things that bring the most value to my clients. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. One of the things you touched on there is in terms of hiring somebody to do a percentage of the quality you can do, and whether that person is likely to be capable of running their own business or not. And being lawn care and garden maintenance, a lot of people will hire somebody who will then go and start their own business. So there's an inherent fear that if you hire somebody, that's what they're going to do, because that's what statistically is likely to happen.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you're exposed to, right? Like, obviously, it sounds like your experience is that happens more than it doesn't. I know plenty of businesses that are running small, medium, and very large commercial and residential maintenance businesses, some with 70 to 100 staff, that those guys aren't leaving. They've decided that that's, for their own personal reasons, they want to stay there.
Yeah.
The reality is if someone's going to leave, they're going to leave. And, even inside our companies, I say, if you want to leave, let me know as early as you can, and I'll help you leave, because I don't want people staying and quietly quitting and just kind of waiting to get fired or waiting to get hired somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think that the reality is, like with relationships, with marriage, etc. You kind of there's I guess the right fit, and sometimes it takes a few tries, as you can see statistically with marriage, to find the right fit. Some people are lucky enough to find it first time. But yeah,
I've had 2 goes.
There you go. And I've heard from everyone that's been married twice that their second marriage is their best. So obviously, unless you're looking for your third, but the reality is, it would be silly to not, like, as an example, if you compare it back to marriage, just because it didn't work, are you never going to fall in love again? Just because that person came and worked for you and left, you can't just give up. I think that the problem is that people decide that because they've seen a garden maintenance business that's hired someone and they've left, or hired someone that's stolen their clients and left, or hired someone that's I guess done a shitty job, that if everyone that they hire is going to be that bad, and that's a limiting belief that the contractor or the business owner should deal with if they choose to. They don't have to. Obviously, there's plenty of people that operate sole trader, but as the years go by, as you'll know, your body doesn't kind of handle getting back up the next day like it did the day before, and crawling through bushes and roof cavities, etc. Eventually, you might need to relinquish that role to someone with a little bit fresher legs.
Well, let's touch on what you said there. Limiting beliefs are a really big factor in this. And I mentioned statistically the number of people in this industry that will go out and give it a go on their own is there. However, if I listen to the community, that's a really common thing. But if I look at the number of people that work as an employee compared to those that actually leave a well-paying job to go and start a business, it's a really low number. But the limiting belief there is everyone I employ is going to go out and start their own business. And it's a case of N equals 1 rather than a statistic analysis. It's, I believe that's true, therefore it's true.
Well, there's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the reality is that if someone does believe that, it's highly likely that it's going to happen. We've got really low staff turnover. I try to make sure that we give the team everything that they need within reason to come to work, do their job with support. And we're not perfect at it. Our policies and procedures are probably our biggest lack. But we try to make sure that they've got everything they need. And then I don't think they're going to leave, I guess. And so in my mind, whether or not I'm willing them to stay, I don't think about it like that. And maybe it depends on how much you believe in the law of attraction and neuro-linguistic programming and the power of the mind. But if you enter into a relationship like that expecting it to fail, then it's probably likely that it will, because you've already predetermined that in your mind.
Yeah. Well, I think part of that is that limiting belief that you started with, right? So if you leave a job to start your own job, not your own business, your own job, right? Because let's face it, that's where you're going. You're becoming a technician on the tools that's working for yourself. If you start from that perspective, then you look at management as the problem, and that's why you left your other job. And you look at management of your job as the problem. When you put on an employee, you don't actually fix the management, you create another management problem.
I think I understand what you're saying. I think sometimes when people leave a job, they promise themselves that they'll never be the bad manager that they had when they were in their last job.
Yeah.
I feel like I reflect back on my former employment, and there's things that I was very pushy that I wanted to do and that I wanted to change when I worked there, and the owner of the business was very much like, that's not what we're doing. And I remember him saying stuff like, if you actually owned the business, you wouldn't be doing this. And the reality is I do. I'm a very unconventional leader, but it's funny. The term limiting beliefs is obviously something that comes from the neuro-linguistic programming space, which I subscribe to, and I have a lady that I work with, and I see her once a month to just talk about stuff that's going on. I guess I'd call her a counselor if we were to use kind of traditional terminology.
Yeah.
And the reality is, a lot of the people that you're asking this question for that have got no employees and are struggling with that, it's very likely that they haven't done the work that they need to do on themselves to put them in a position where they can hire someone and many people and do it successfully and retain those employees and grow the business.
Yeah. Well,
they're
full
probably-
transparency, I have been doing a lot of deconstructing of my own limiting beliefs, but I'm still in a position where I have one employee. I have a couple of casuals I call on every now and then, but I have not grown my business anywhere near like what you have done. And that's one of the reasons why I call on people like you to do a podcast with, because I know the amount of information and wisdom I can garner from somebody like you and pass that on to my audience is a lot more than what I can do on my own.
Yeah, and it's funny because I still have a lot of my own limiting beliefs, and I guess we're all at different stages. You know, I had a session with Tony, the lady that I work with them this week. What's today? No, it was last week, late last week.
Yeah, okay.
And I've still got things that, you know, I'm self-sabotaging myself because of those limiting beliefs. And I think that ultimately in business, if you haven't done it yet, it's likely that you either don't want to or you don't believe you deserve to. And that's something that you'll get asked in if you are doing work like that they'll say, you know, is this something that actually matters? You know, you might say, I want to give up smoking. And they'll be like, do you really? And you're like, well, not really. And until you actually do, then there's not a lot you can do until you actually decide you want to. And I think some people will say that they want to hire someone or they want to grow their business because it's what their partner wants or it's what society expects of them, and it's what. Whereas for some people, it might be perfect just to stay as a one-person business and set some very strong rules around how you work. You know, you have a month off a year and your clients know it, and you know, you won't respond to emails outside of a certain hour, and invoices get sent on this day, and if they're not paid, I won't come back. Like, you can, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to try to be as self-aware as you can be around what you actually want. And we might have talked about this. I don't know if we talked about this last time, but it's kind of something I subscribe to, is working out what the actual goal is and then working your way backwards.
Yeah, I think we did touch on it just a little bit, but yeah, it's good to, particularly in light of employing people, it is really good to look at it from that perspective.
Because why do you want to hire? Like, the reality is that if you're doing it because you think you're meant to, you probably haven't really given it any thought. But if you're doing it because you're working 100 and 120 hours a week and you're not spending time with your family and you're stressed and depressed and there's parts of the job that you hate, then hiring someone is probably the right thing to do if you want the business to stay at that size or grow. But then something that people are probably not thinking about is, what are you actually hiring? Are you hiring an administrative support person? Are you hiring an executive assistant? Are you hiring you might even be an IT person or a marketing person, because you're actually spending 10 or 15 hours a week posting content about the business or editing podcasts. And it might not be something that gives you the same buzz as, you know, finishing hedging a backyard and the joy that you get from doing that. And you know how you get into that kind of flow state, right?
Yep.
So I think it's important for people to, if they are thinking about hiring, to really sit down and look at their calendar and understand what their week or their month looks like and where they're spending most of their time, and what of that gives them joy and what of that they don't look forward to. And they might quite often find that they're not looking to hire another person to do what they're doing on site. They might actually need to hire someone to do what they're doing off site.
Definitely. And I think that's quite scary for a lot of people. And it comes back to that limiting belief. It's do I really want to do that? And if you're looking at it from the point of view of going, well, I just want to grow my business a little bit, most people will not consider hiring administrative side or marketing side or anything like that. They'll be, okay, let's replicate myself.
Look, the first hire is quite scary, but I can tell you the 40th hire is just as scary. You know, you've got a different bandwidth of cash, but you're responsible for someone's life. And especially as the business gets bigger, you start hiring executives and people that, you know, the recruitment process might take 3 or 4 months, and they're leaving an established career path to come and work with you. And it's still if you're a decent human being, it still weighs on your mind. But like I said, if you have a clear understanding of what you're looking to achieve and have some goals around the growth and you know, what you want to do, what you want your day to look like, you'll probably find that it makes it easier to understand what you're looking to hire. And then you'll find that you'll find you can if you do the recruitment process well, you'll find someone that actually gets as much joy from sending emails and sitting in a spreadsheet as you get from mowing lawns and hedging hedges, because everyone has their own thing, right? So yeah, that's kind of how we look at it.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think touching on how you hire somebody is really relevant here, because typically when I first put on an employee, I was looking to duplicate myself. So, somebody who can do lawns as well as me, as efficiently as me, 100%, not 95, not 90, not 80, not even 40%.
You're still going to charge the client the same hourly rate, right? So you feel a responsibility on the same job rate.
Yeah. But what I did was I reached out through my network, so word of mouth, and I have found people through word of mouth. But when I'm talking to people who are growing from one offsider, we love calling them an offsider or a helper. So from one offsider through to somebody who's actually doing several teams of employees out there on the road doing maintenance work, they start referring to using Seek and other job finding tools, and more formal hiring techniques. Yep. And for a lot of us, people who are thinking about going down that path and they go grow, shrink, grow, shrink, grow, shrink, they don't go down that path because using Seek, having formal hiring interviews, it's a little bit too scary.
Yeah, look, I think that for us, I've always used Seek as a platform to advertise a job.
Yeah.
And I'm talking maybe not. I think the first hire was word of mouth, but we might have still advertised it on Seek. Okay. And I've seen, influxes of applicants and low numbers of applicants. I think if you want to hire, there's a lot to unpack here. If people aren't using Seek and they're just posting it on Facebook and, they just post an image on Instagram of like, we want someone.
Yeah. In
my mind, they are subconsciously sabotaging the hiring process because they are too scared to actually commit to it. I mean, if they post it on LinkedIn and then they don't hire someone, then they can just blame, there wasn't anyone, so we didn't hire anyone. The reality is, like most things in business, it's usually a marketing problem. And if you have a job available, if you market it to enough people, you'll fill it with a suitable person. And so we always advertise on Seek, and the cost of Seek is getting higher and higher and higher, and I don't love it. And I think there's probably room for disruption there, but it's not there yet. Like, Career One exists, but it's not the website.
Yeah.
But what I found with Seek is that it legitimizes the fact that you are actually selling something, like you have a job available. And I think if you're looking for a talented individual that is going to be able to do the job well and they're reliable and they are going to rock up, they probably aren't looking for work. They're probably currently employed by someone and they're happy, especially in a market where employment, is in a certain space. So for us, what we find is marketing is the key for us to find talented people, because we're really looking to go grab people that are working and that aren't looking for work. So we'll put an ad on Seek and then we'll share the job on Meta, so Facebook, Instagram, with the view that it puts the ad or the job in front of someone that might know someone, and then they might be like, hey, I know you're happy with your job. And this is what a recruitment agency does, but I don't like paying their fees. I think they're exorbitant for what they do. And so it puts the job in front of someone, and I think there's just a higher likelihood that you're going to get some talented candidates. We had, and it depends on the branding of the company as well, right? Like Lawn Hub, for example, advertised for people to come and pack orders somewhere around September last year. So we had an ad on Seek and we shared it on our social. And our social reach is pretty good. Our email database is pretty strong. We had 1,107 applicants for one job. Well, we hired more than one, but for one job ad.
Is that in Adelaide?
That's just, so the job's in direct, which is where I am right now. The applicants, I don't know, they might have come from other parts of the world, but the majority of the applicants were in South Australia, local enough to come and start straight away. We probably hired 6 or 8 people from that ad. Now, if WaterPro advertises a job, they'll get like a counter sales job, full-time retail counter sales. They might get, say, 35 applicants. And, 2 years ago, we were getting 12 applicants. So I guess everything, the jobs are all different, and I've never looked under the hood of a garden maintenance business to understand how much they're actually getting if they do advertise those, if they do advertise those jobs. But what I do see a lot in our market is it's a lot of cannibalizing of the industry. So it's poaching from someone else. So, because there's a shortage of skilled labor that does landscaping is probably more the language I speak than garden maintenance, but let's put them together as a similar thing. There's not enough skilled people to do that. So what's happening is they're going and poaching from other people. And then it just increases the hourly rate of the individual because people are moving for money. And then all of a sudden, that's where inflation obviously comes from. But you've got this kind of micro inflation inside an industry. And then eventually some businesses go broke because they're paying too much. And then it kind of levels itself out again. But I think that if I was running a garden maintenance business of some kind of substantial size, 20 plus people, my goal would be to be recruiting talented people and training them with the skills, and then making sure that they don't have any reason to leave. And I think if you can do that, then you actually build a really strong team of loyal people that believe in the story and the goal of the business, and you're not at risk of poaching so much. We're quite lucky. WaterPro, not lucky. It's probably from the work that we've done, but people don't really leave WaterPro to go work for competitors. They leave to do something different. We recently had one of our counter sales staff leave to go into an administrative role because she wanted to do that. She didn't enjoy serving customers at the counter like some of the other guys do.
Yeah.
But it's I don't want to say. I probably could confidently say we've never had someone leave to go work for a direct competitor.
Okay. That's good.
Which is not, that's in your world. That's happens every day, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess let's compare this to a relationship again. If you're talking about hiring somebody and you are self-sabotaging, it's kind of like going down the pub and selling yourself to whoever will look at you and saying, well, I'm a solid 4 out of 10. And underselling yourself, but then aiming for picking up a 3 out of 10.
There's probably 10 different examples that you can look at it like that. And A-grade players want to work with A-grade players. And I guess the reality is it's very unlikely that a C-grade player is going to graduate into A-grade status. And you might be able to drag Bs up to As. But the reality is if you create this kind of ecosystem where the business is loaded full of A-grade players that want to work hard, achieve good results, then it's a lot easier to recruit A-grade players that want to work hard and achieve good results because they're known to each other, or talent can smell talent, right? So the businesses that are out there absolutely killing it, people are looking, going, hang on, what? And I've seen it here with landscape construction and garden maintenance businesses, that people are moving from a C grade or B grade operator to an A grade operator because they are an A grade operator, and they want to go work for someone where they'll be given the opportunity to work on the projects that are most revered, where their talent will be recognized and rewarded by someone that's at that level, so that it gives them opportunity for growth. Because it's not just money, and I mean that comes up a lot. It's interesting. A lot of the guys in your space on podcasts talk about hourly rates and staff and hours. Luke Smith was the same. He's very much like hourly rates. And I just think that the more you talk about it, the more you make it a problem. I think where you almost have a responsibility, and you don't have to, you do you, but to really highlight the other benefits of working in the space rather than just what do you get paid per hour, because I think that can just cause more conversation about it.
Yeah, and there are some fairly significant benefits in working in this space. So it is worth highlighting that.
Significant benefits of working for, lawn and garden maintenance company A versus lawn and garden maintenance company B around flexibility of work or, support, training, what might matter to you. I mean, I know some guys that have, got shared custody of kids that are requiring a little bit more flexibility on one week, and then they work harder on other weeks.
Definitely flexible hours.
Yeah, and so you've got to be careful there, because if you start writing custom work plans for all your employees, then all of a sudden everyone's got a custom deal, and then sometimes no one's at work. But
look, I think there's actually some value in that, because some of the guys that work solo really enjoy working part of a day rather than a whole day. So they might do a 5-hour day, or they might say, all right, I'm not going to start until the kids are gone to school.
Yep.
And you can find employees that want to do the same thing. They're like, I want to work school hours only. So you can build a team where they work on that principle of working school hours, or you can run back to back where you go, okay, I'm going to start at 7 o'clock with a mum that has to do after school care. She can start early, but she needs to finish early. And then I'm going to switch over in the middle of the day to somebody who wants to do the other end of the day, but can't do the start.
It's that's a tough one. And I think that, I guess, if you're going to do something like that, you really have to make sure that you set the expectations from both parties early. We've got inside WaterPro, we've got someone who has a flexible workplace arrangement because of the shared custody I mentioned before. Yeah. We wanted to support him in being able to see his son as much as possible when it's his time to have his son. But he'd also done, 7 or 8 years of loyal, hard work, so he'd earned the right to do that. I think sometimes people try to meet some kind of like Google, Facebook box where, everyone's got colourful lounge chairs and everyone's got flexible work arrangements, and you don't even have to come to work and you'll get paid.
Yeah, inclusivity.
Yeah, and it just doesn't work. And we're seeing a shift, in the US, I guess, with the change of leadership, and then obviously with Elon Musk's exposure to the world, that a lot of businesses don't want their staff working from home anymore. They don't want flexible work arrangement because it hasn't worked. Because not a lot of people have the discipline and the capability to be able to be at home and just be working. If someone comes to the door, they'll answer the door. If they walk past their kitchen and there's something on the bench, they'll clean it up. I know that's very extreme examples, but the reality is, if you were at work working, you wouldn't be doing that. So
I think that's completely relevant when you're talking about certain types of jobs, because if I was to put on an administrative person at the moment, I'd be quite happy to go, okay, you can work from home because your job role is going to be 10 hours a week. As long as you get your 10 hours done, I don't care how many coffees you have in between. Just don't charge me for 20 hours when you're only doing 5.
Yeah, it's hard, because the reality is people can. It depends what you want. If you're just results driven, and you know that it took you 10 hours a week to do it, and if they can do it in 6, who gives a shit? Because they're getting it all done. You're not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
I have a lot of issues we've had it in the past where staff have been given autonomy where they've gone and worked and done whatever, and then they've kind of hacked the system and been able to get good at, because they're lazy. So lazy people are really, lazy salespeople are quite good because they work out ways to get the same result with less work.
Yep.
My desire and my argument is, well, I want you to then fuel the other 40% of the time that you've just saved doing more work and being better.
Of course.
Whereas their argument is, well, I'm getting paid to do this and I got it done. So that's what I'm referring to when I say it's really important for you to set the expectations early.
Yes.
And it's the same. If we keep having the parallel back to marriage, it's very rare for anyone to sit down and actually talk through, the standard operating procedure of their marriage and going, okay, what are the expectations of me and what are the expectations? I didn't do it. You kind of navigate it. You might have done it on your second more than your first, but
look, we sat down and did it after. A few years in, we're like, we need to have some expectations in this relationship that are going to make it more tenable. And
that's perfect. And I've seen it. I regret not doing it. It hasn't worked out in a bad way. And my wife is sitting in proximity to me, so she can hear me. That I wish that I had done it, and I don't think it would have given us any different result, but it would have given us something to reference back to. And it's hard because it's how romantic is sitting down with 100 questions and going, do my 100 questions match your 100? Simple things like, do you want to have kids? And if so, how many kids do you want to have? And, do you want to go to public school or private school? These are all things that you kind of get to later. And then you have an argument because you're like, well, they have to go to public school. And you're like, you're a dickhead. We always said private school. So there's, and I think that's separate. But in business, you kind of have to. And I think that in the absence of having an actual documented expectations, the brand of the company and the culture that people see outwardly. Like, we've had people apply for jobs because they've seen videos on LinkedIn of us celebrating birthdays, right? And seen cakes being given, or they've seen celebrations of anniversaries. We just had our longest ever serving staff member just cracked 15 years. People see that and they go, wow, that's something I want to be part of. So there's an expectation, or when I say there's a perceived expectation there. I think the next level for us, and it's something that we are working on quite actively, my managers that work directly below. So we've got me, GM, ops manager, and then a string of managers. So IT, finance, marketing, no sales yet. That's something that we need. But those guys, my expectation on them now is when you have a new hire, you clearly outline what you expect of them, and then give them feedback aggressively and directly as much as you can. And I'm to the point, like my feedback's with permission. It's really, really direct. So my media team reports more directly to me than anyone else because of the amount of media that we do.
Of course.
And so I say to them, can I get your permission to be like really blunt? Because it's the only way that we're going to be able to get this done. And you'll grow quickly. And sometimes you'll probably cry because I'll be like, this is shit, do it again. But
Yep.
If not, and if you say no, I need cotton wool, don't talk to me like that, then I'll be polite. But your growth's going to be slow. But if you say, yeah, just tell me how it is. Like, I had a meeting yesterday with a guy, a CEO, so it was CEO to CEO effectively, and he's like, let's just get this done. Like, I'm going to do exactly how I feel. You tell me how you feel. I'm like, perfect. I don't want to beat around the bush. I don't need coffee, fluffy bullshit. So I think if you can set your expectations, I probably talked about this last time we did a podcast. If you set your expectations, give that feedback as regularly as possible. Like the next day, we talked about this yesterday, you're not doing it. By the time you get to the 1 month probation, 2 month probation, 3 month review, all that kind of thing, the employee is so aware that it's not working out that they'll just go, look, I get it, I'm going to leave. You don't even have to tell me, because the expectations were set. And it makes it so much easier to manage staff, because there's nothing worse than having to fire someone after 6 months when you've never told them they're doing anything wrong. It's like you get divorced, you're like, I'm leaving. And your wife's like, what? Like, when did this happen? And you're like, well, I probably should have told you, but I haven't been happy about these 100 things.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Is that what happened in your first marriage? You don't have to answer that.
Look, that I will say yes, that there is definitely some unmet expectations and untalked about expectations, but no, there's.
I know this isn't a marriage podcast. It's probably it's moving in that direction, but
there was some more interesting fiery stuff in between.
Efficiency is the thing that rules a business and the decisions you make as a small business owner. Right Mowers give you the options in their product lineup to match efficiency with size, fuel usage, and the type of jobs you want to target, from catching to mulching or side discharge, from roadside verges to acreages, and manicured lawns to 6 feet tall and super long. I've been using the Right Stander I 42-inch with a Catch Pro for manicured areas, and the Stander ZK61 to maximise productivity for large open acreage mowing. If you need to replace your push mower, try the 32-inch Stander B. If you have more open access to residential properties, there's a 42 through to 48-inch option that suits you. And if you want to enter the acreage market, the 52, 61 and 72-inch machines have choices in engine size and model type to suit the work you want it to do. Right Standards go the distance, saving you time and money season after season.
So I just think, setting expectations is key, and then it just gets easier. Like, every time I think I've got business completely sorted, I discover there's something I don't know. So you never stop learning. There's never this point of like complete business mastery. I think that the whole reason why I love business so much is because I'm always learning new things and always doing more things. But you do get to a point where you feel quite safe because nothing can hurt you, right? Like people have said, like anything that they bring to me now, short of someone dying, or us going like a catastrophic financial situation where we actually go bankrupt, and even then, I think I'd go, okay, well, what do we need to do first? Like liquidate, sell some stuff. Who do we owe money to? Who do we have to make right? There's nothing that can really hurt you because you're like, well, it just is, right? Like you've got this. The person came up, like you've hired someone, you've set out your expectations. It hasn't worked out, and then they've left. It doesn't mean you never hire anyone again.
Well, it does. for a lot of people, and this comes to that limiting belief, right? So I think this is where you and I differ, and I'm respecting you, and I make a deliberate attempt to spend time with people like you, so I learn from you, right? You started your business with the belief that it's a business and
Yeah.
you're going to have employees. I started my business with the belief that I'm going to cut grass and I'm going to cut it really well.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that. And I think that sometimes is the risk of an artist, right? So if you go, like, I consider what you do and what the people that are in similar industries do as art, right? So you've got
Yeah, for sure.
Even carpenters, bricklayers, tilers, plasterers, renderers, landscapers, electricians. There's an art to what they do. You can't go buy two identical mowing jobs, right?
True.
You get given the same yard, you're going to do it differently to this person.
Yep.
Whereas if I want to go buy a mobile phone, I go to JB Hi-Fi, The Good Guys, whatever. It's the same phone. It's identical. If you buy the same, if you're trying to compare price on price on price.
Yeah.
And so what we do as retailers, especially WaterPro, we're selling other people's products. So the only real point of difference is our level of service. But even then, if you can deal with being treated really badly and you just want the cheapest price, you can go to hardware shop, irrigation shop, and just buy what you want.
Yeah,
Whereas what you do is art. And so there's a bit more nuance there where a homeowner they say, I want you to do the work because you're the best artist that I know to do the work.
And there's room in the industry for both of these, right? So if you go for green options or, some of the larger landscaping maintenance companies,
commercial, yep,
they're not doing art. They are just doing the 10% maintenance.
More science, yeah. So I guess if there's an art-science balance, it might be 90-10, more than 80-20 your way, right?
So those big guys, they are going, all right, I've got employees that are 15 years old through to 30 years old, and they are doing the bare minimum plus a little bit.
Yep.
I come at it from that point of view of going, I want to provide a similar customer with a great experience, right? So I'm aiming for 10 out of 10, whereas they're aiming for probably 7 out of 10.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, and it might not really be that obvious from the outside, but a lot of those commercial guys have been forced into a position where they have to deliver a result at a certain level because of the commercial reality of the business. Like,
yeah,
they'll go tender for a job with a council to do mowing of verges, to win the job, they've had to do whatever, get the price point to here.
That's a 2 out of 10 when suing the council verges. You don't need 10 out of 10.
I guess it depends on the company. And I've got to be careful what I say because a lot of these guys are friends and customers. But because they have, increased, like the weather controls a lot, right? So all of a sudden they get a really wet spring, summer, and the grass grows quicker, and their contract is fixed to, it just has to be looked after. Whereas now they're mowing 3 times what they thought they were going to, so they have to be rushed. Yep. And so I guess and this is a bigger conversation, but there's a burden there on the local government to actually probably write their tenders better so that it's there's a bit more connection to a result rather than just it being done. Like the actual standard needs to be a certain way. But that'll never happen. I've been really critical of how local government manage their supply contracts and their install contracts because they always say that there's this matrix where it's, there's points for price, there's points for reputation and experience, there's points for using local people and local businesses. And then I go, when have you ever chosen the contractor that wasn't the cheapest? And they're like, it happens. I'm like, it never happens, right? And you'll get guys that have got 20 years experience. They're like local to the point where, like, say I'm in Salisbury Council now. They have Salisbury Council start, like the people live in Salisbury, and I'm not saying Salisbury do a bad job, I'm just saying as a point. So the business is based in Salisbury, the staff all live in Salisbury, they bought lawnmowers from a company that sells them in Salisbury, the machines get serviced in Salisbury, and then they lose the tender by 4% to a company that's come from Victoria into South Australia because of price. So I think that's got some room there to be managed better. And to be honest, and this I don't know, this podcast was not meant to go in this direction, but this is what happens when you talk to me. I really think that with the increased use of artificial intelligence and blockchain, that we'll probably find that smart contracts will enable local government to be able to set lots more parameters around how things get delivered and really refine the best value rather than the cheapest price. I hope that's what happens, because I think it's merit. It should be merit based.
I see people in lawn care ranging from people who can't string a sentence together through to people who are running teams and running 150 employees. And AI has its place in putting together a tender, for sure.
Everything,
it makes
scheduling, tendering.
Makes it easier for everybody.
Yeah.
But going back to that council verge, if I'm doing the residential property off the side of that road, the expectation from the homeowner is that their lawn gets cut regularly and looks spectacular. Maybe variation on depending on which suburb you're in or whatever. But when it comes to the council verge in the same street, it's never going to have the same level of expectation as the private property does.
No, and it also depends on how old the subdivision is. We work with a lot of developers where for the first period, be it 3, 4, 5 years, when the entry statement is the jewel in the crown of the new suburb, the maintenance scheduling will be higher. There'll be more water being added to the lawns. There'll be more fertilizer being used. The mowing will be more regular because it's important, because it's, I guess, it's the shop front of the blocks of land that are being sold.
Yeah, of course.
Then you get to the other side where a council is a business, and if you want your verges to look lush and green and weed free, using Lawn Hub ads, are you comfortable for your rates to go up by 12%? Right?
Yeah.
Because most people will say, nope, I don't give a shit.
I see this with new subdivisions around me. So when it's a new subdivision, the roadside verge is owned by the person,
the developer,
developer. Yeah. So they pay a private contractor to make that roadside verge look spectacular.
Well, it's still their responsibility. It doesn't get handed over to council till 4 years.
Sometimes they go cheap as well. But yeah, typically speaking, it's okay. It's a private contractor, and there's a lot of emphasis on we want this subdivision to look like we're selling something.
Look, that again, all of this it's all a budget, right? It's all an Excel spreadsheet of how much money are we willing to spend to sell blocks of land. And the one that, as I was talking, the one I could see in my head is the Walker Corp. So Walker Corp have got subdivisions around the country. I don't know exactly, but they may be the biggest developer in the country. They don't cut corners on that stuff. Yeah. So, you're saying like that they sometimes have private contractors and they might not be very good. These guys do not want anything below A grade standard, right? And so you probably see a bigger disparity between when they own the subdivision and when the council takes ownership of it, because they were looking after it at such a high standard. Yeah. Then it gets handed to a local council who potentially are still expected to maintain the same. So their area has gone from, say, 100% to 120%, but their staffing is still at 90% or 100%. So they've got more people expected to empty more bins, mow more lawns, clean off more graffiti, fix more park benches. There's all these things, and it's just an economy, right?
Yeah. And the local councils will often subcontract or put it out to tender for some of those jobs because it's outside of the scope of what they manage for their employees.
And then they've got a budget to adhere to, and then unfortunately the cheapest price quite often becomes the one. And then there's internal movement. Someone who awards the contract knew how they were going to manage the contractor to get the most out of that low cost, and then the new person comes in and doesn't quite understand all the nuances of that. There's so many moving parts.
For sure. So it's a nice little rabbit hole to dive down. If we bring this back around to employing people and a business that starts with the belief that I can do a artistic perfection on any job that I apply myself to, where that transition comes where the first employee is put on and you go, okay, the employee's not going to do art. They're just going to do...
They'll do science.
The bare minimum. So I need to train the employee.
So that you might hire someone to do... to get it done, but the quality's not the same. But it's done.
And I guess this comes down to how well you set those expectations when you put your first employee on. And I've talked to a couple of people that have gone down the path of going, okay, you're getting remunerated based on performance, or I'll subcontract to you. And the subcontract means that you will get paid based on how many jobs you get done for the day.
Yeah, which is challenging because then if you don't have a quality metric in play, then they'll get them all done. They'll just do a shitty job. And
Yeah.
then, and like I said, like lazy people are great because they'll find shortcuts, but then all of a sudden you've got them, blowing all the debris onto the road so that they don't have to clean it up. And I don't know what the rules are around that, but maybe throwing stuff in the client's bin instead of taking it in the trailer because it's quicker, and just all these little things that I guess becoming incremental degradation of your business, and then all of a sudden they got it all done, but then it wasn't to the same level. I think if I was running a lawn and garden maintenance business, I would be paying the staff what they need to be paid fairly to come to work, and then rewarding good behavior rather than punishing bad behavior. And I think if you can do that publicly and make the pathway to success really clear, like there's a bunch of different examples I can think of, and I won't use their names because I don't know how public this information is, but there's a commercial landscaper we deal with that has a profit share with their staff. It's a privately owned business, so there's no shared information around how much profit the company made, but there's a percentage of profit that gets distributed between all of the staff based on the success of the business, and each person gets a number based on, I guess, what their wage is as a percentage of they have a factor or something.
So is it based on their wage, or is it also based on meeting KPI?
No, I think it's just if the company does well, they all get a share of it. So
okay.
Obviously, senior management have a higher percentage, but from what I've been told, that could be $20,000 a year of a bonus for someone. So it's substantial and it matters.
Yeah. There's a guy over in the US, Mike Enders. I don't know if you've heard of Mike. He runs Augusta Lawncare, and he's very vocal on social media and about his franchise system he's been putting together.
Yep.
And he's been working on a profit share, like a paid profit based on performance. So the feedback I've had on that is it's great, it's awesome, but it's complex. So how much administrative time do you spend managing the performance indicators to actually make sure the profit shares
need to spend much time at all. And that's the great thing about artificial intelligence, even simple software. If you can measure the profitability of something, and this is something we really struggle with WaterPro because it's such a complex business.
Yeah.
The only way to really reward, so my bonus structure for WaterPro would be tied to turnover, not profit, because turnover is a metric that we know. Whereas because of the way we manage our inventory, there's a lot of times where we use average cost of a product. So we might buy products and then we buy more products, and then because we've got a better deal, the cost changes. So it's hard to manage. But if you can really clearly delineate the actual profit and work out a way to share that, I think it's great. I mean, I look at things like almost like pseudo franchising. So you've got this area, you manage it, you haven't had to pay anything to set it up. So this suburb of whatever is your area. You mow all the houses there. I'll send you the work, and I'll take 20% of the profit, and I'll give you 80% of the profit. And that's a franchise or whatever. I don't know what you call it, like an internal franchise. They've paid no cost, and if they leave, they lose it, right? Like it's your business. Yep. I mean, obviously, there's the risk that they leave and give the clients a 10% discount and take 90%. But the reality is, all of the other infrastructure, like the billing and the admin and all the other things that a lot of artists don't want to do, gets managed by the master franchisee or the owner of the business. Yeah. And then if they've got low quality behavior or slow return, then the people aren't going to make as much money. The downside is there that you might upset clients as well, but. Yeah.
I think Jim's Mowing is the only franchise I know which gives franchisees a clear path. Here's what you want, what you can do if you want to exit.
Yeah.
And that's an actual franchise model.
I saw a video the other day, one of his TikToks. He's been pretty active on social for a couple of years.
Yes.
And he said that, if he won't force them to stay.
Yeah.
He considers their model fair, and the percentage that they charge is fair. And look, you get to a scale where it's easier to do that because it's like Lawn Hub, right? We've got to a point where the warehouse we're in now, which is ridiculous, we could quadruple, or maybe not quadruple, we could double our turnover with no more staff, and
Yeah,
we could probably 10x our turnover with no more warehouse. And
Yeah.
so for Jim, it's quite low cost to bring on new franchises because all the contracts are done, the systems are in place. They've got to this critical mass where the whole country knows they can call that 1-3 number or whatever it is, and there's a franchisee close by. And so if you leave, someone else will take it. So, but it's a lot easier to be fair from a privileged position like he's in. It's hard to do that when you've got no money.
Yeah, I don't know the actual number, but I hear them talking about the number of unserviced leads per year, and there's a
Tens
lot
of
of
thousands.
a lot of money that is overflowing outside of his catchment. That it comes through the catchment and goes straight back out again because not enough franchisees to service it, and so they try and manage that so they can put on new franchisees in areas where there's a lot of unserviced leads.
Well, they know where they are.
Yeah,
you know,
that's right.
They know what's the next best franchise. Look, how long it's going to be like that, I don't know. Obviously, there's a skills shortage in a lot of industries, and you know, I don't get contractors to do work at my house because I can't be bothered dealing with the bullshit. And so we just leave stuff. Like there's this banner behind me is meant to be a wall. We want to build a wall. We want to turn this into a proper studio. So I don't know if I can show you. So if you can see, there's like my guys sit there for mixing the podcast, and then that's the wall for the podcast.
Okay, yep.
We had a contractor come out here and price to put a wall behind me and a door so it would be a soundproof room.
Yep.
Never heard back, you know, and we've got money sitting here waiting to get the wall built. And I find that's the same in so many different industries, and I can't be bothered dealing with it, so I just don't. And so we don't use anyone. But, you know, I guess that it might not always be like that. And that's when we'll truly find out who's got skill and who's just lucky. But
well, this comes back to this circular problem that I've got. So if you go through a Jim's franchise, then a lot of systems are in place already, which means you can focus on growing your business. However, if you have a limiting belief that you're only ever going to be solo and that you don't want to deal with management and employees, then you'll never grow past that size. And I put a number on this because I'm always talking to people. $150,000 to $200,000 a year is sort of a solo person's cap.
In that's the turnover minus costs, or that's profit after costs?
So that's total, 150 to 200K.
Yep, and then you got to pay petrol and oil and
a lot of people will. Yeah, a lot of people will get stuck on the 100,000 or about 120,000, but 150 to 200 is good.
But you've got independence, you've got tax write-offs.
Yeah, but
it might be perfect for some people.
Bring it back to this issue. The issue that if you've got those systems in place from a franchise, or Jim's specifically, then they're not going to create a system for you to become a manager and deal with employees, but they take a lot of the load off your business so that you can spend time doing other things.
Yeah, and look, I think the guys that do it really well have a good artist and a good scientist. And if you are the artist, then you need to hire a scientist, or you need to go into a partnership with a scientist to do well. And I see it in software engineering. I see it in landscaping. Like it's not unique to even like if you think about, you know, potentially surgeons or plastic surgeons or doctors or dentists, like that might be their skill, but they're probably horrible at booking appointments and following up and billing things and lodging Medicare forms and whatever else needs to happen.
Yep.
And I guess there's a few ways you can do it. You can go into a partnership, which I'm not a fan of, and that's because I've had negative experiences with it.
Yeah.
That's me, right? That's fine. There's other people I know that have, like, there's a couple of guys up here in Mount Barker that own a company called Adelaide Hills Lawns and Gardens. I think they've got 70 staff. It might even be more now. They do residential and commercial garden maintenance traditionally, and now they're moving into landscape design, the whole thing.
Right.
They've got an artist and a scientist, right? They're business partners. They work really, really well. One of them's handling the work and the people, and then the other one's probably handling as much the people, but also the numbers, which is the science. Now, I'm not a big lover I'm in a really unique position where I don't care about either. I'm not an artist or a scientist. I'm probably a bullshit artist or something, or a mad scientist. But because I enjoy business, so
Yeah.
I've had to fill my gaps around the things that I'm not good at, which is responding to emails, setting up systems, that kind of thing. But I don't have a formal science, right? A formal art. Like I'm not a landscaper or a tiler or a garden maintenance person. I'm a salesperson. That's my art, I guess. So
Yep. Yeah, and I think I heard you say it on one of your podcasts recently. And when I say recently, I think you put out like 3 last year, maybe.
I haven't done a lot of podcasts, and it's funny. Joel, who does the
Joel
landscape,
Barnett.
yeah, Joel Barnett. I every time I see him, I'm like, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. Because I think I probably started the full landscape before most people started podcasting in that space. But I'm busy trying to grow businesses, and it just kind of falls off. And maybe there's limiting beliefs there. Maybe I didn't think I deserved the success, and so probably didn't do enough podcasts.
Look, I think podcasting's not your forte, but it doesn't mean you couldn't do it.
No, and I think if I didn't run businesses and just did podcasts, I would do 3 a week.
But I'm doing a lot of podcasting and I'm not making money out of it. So there's that too.
Right?
Right?
I go one step past that. I'm doing podcasting and I've got 4 full-time marketing staff, so I'm paying people to do it. And look, I might not have seen the benefit clearly, but Lawn Hub's growth has been substantial. You know, Lawn Hub's grown from a $1.7 million to a $10 million business in 3 years.
Congratulations.
From a $0 business 7 years ago to a $10 million business.
Yeah.
And that's all connected to the media that we do. So be it podcasting or ads or whatever. And then, we were at Live Golf on the weekend and I was being recognized by people. I had a Lawn Hub shirt on and I did that intentionally because I was like, now it's time to start kind of leveraging this.
Yep.
And I met with like people that were famous and, people that played high level sport, people from TV. They knew the brand because we were in a corporate area together. So I think it might not bring, like, even for you, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily bring immediate profit, but there's some value there in personal brand. And, Lawn Hub is the perfect example of the value of branding and the value of brand. And as we move further and further, like, you think if it gets to a point where what you do becomes, it's irrelevant who does it, right? Say robotics, say AI and robotics go out and do garden maintenance and mow lawns, and it is literally exactly the same every time because they go out and do exactly the same path.
Yep.
They trim it perfectly.
Yep.
Then the next thing will be personal brand and company branding, right? Because they want Gary's robots out there because they trust what he does and that you've built trust in the market. So I don't think that there's anything. The only thing this is costing you is time, right?
Sure.
And if you enjoy it and you're growing as a person from it.
Yep. Well, I've actually got 6 robotic lawnmowers out there at the moment, so spot on.
Really?
Yeah.
You do?
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because when I said robotic mowers, I wasn't conscious of the fact that they actually exist already. I'm thinking like the kind of those robots with the screen on the face that are just like and just going out there and actually mowing lawns. But
I've got 6 of them working currently. They're just out there doing the lawns while I'm sitting here talking to you.
And so you'll just keep charging the same, but you'll set up a ring fence and put the mower out there, and it just does it.
Well, the way I've looked at it, and this comes from this whole discussion we've got going at the moment. I look at it as a service that goes in with putting in tenders and quotes for commercial work. So I look at a commercial job and I go, okay, how much of that work can be done robotically and how much labor is needed on the job? That's how I quote the job.
And then they'll just be treated differently.
Well, it's just part of the quote.
It's just a lump sum.
If it's a $200,000 quote, there's X amount for labor, there's X amount for materials.
And they don't need to know the ins and outs of that. It's just how you manage it.
Well,
how have you managed to, I guess, vandalism and security around the robots? You just make sure you choose the right sites?
So robots have GPS tracking, and if somebody steals it, it's an offence. That person on the site will likely be terminated from their job for stealing a robot off the site.
Oh, because you're saying that if they're on a private site, then you'll know who stole it. Yeah.
Well, it's got GPS tracking, so I can look at where it's gone. So unless somebody just vandalizes it and chucks it in the creek, then see you later. It's an insurance claim. But otherwise, it's a case of going, oh, this person stole it because it's at their house. And they can't use it anyway. So
It's just stupid to steal it. You're going to steal it for copper, right?
well, just for the notoriety of...
Oh, yeah, of stealing something. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I knew there were people out there doing that. I didn't know you were one of them. That's really cool.
Yeah, so I've been doing that, and the cheap plug for the Segway robots, they're the best ones I'm working with at the moment.
Yep.
And their value for dollar for effort, they do let's hit the spot.
Yeah, Segway, okay. Because I'd only seen like Husqvarna and I don't even know the other brands. That's the only one that comes to mind.
Yeah, there's half a dozen brands around that do it and do okay, but Husqvarna's the most well known. But dollar for dollar compared to a Segway, it's about twice the price.
The Segways are more.
No, the Husqvarna.
No shit. That's interesting.
And the Husqvarna's good.
Yep.
I would happily recommend a Husqvarna to anyone. But
when you're buying and having a group of them, you're better off being conscious of price.
Well, undoubtedly, price comes into it. And if I say to you, hey, Clint, I could have a robot looking after your backyard, and instead of you getting the cylinder mower out and doing it, the robot's going to do it daily, which means it's always going to look like a golf course or a green. It's going to be phenomenal. But
I need that. Problem is I've got a dog that lays cables out there, so I'd have to just make sure that we need a robot to pick up the dog poo.
Yeah, I've got a solution for that too, but no.
You just go pick it up the dog poo, right?
I bury the dog poo.
Yeah.
So you know what a lawn plugger is?
Yeah.
Takes a plug out of your lawn, and you can check the quality of the soil and all that sort of thing. I take a plug out of the lawn, I use that to level some of the lawn, and I put the dog poo in the hole. Done.
Yeah, okay. And that works for you?
Yeah, it's great.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, it does take a little bit of effort, but I'm sure you got kids that want some pocket money.
Oh, they do. They can just pick up the poo and throw it in the bin. But yeah, we just have to make sure we get ahead of it. Because I've been thinking a lot about and this is funny because it goes back to what we talked about with hiring, right?
Yeah.
I've been thinking a lot about my time and where my time's best spent. I'm in a position where I can pretty much hire to fill a lot of different roles, and that could include
picking up the dog poo.
Well, picking up dog poo, but cooking for us, and having a cleaner in the house. And there's certain things my wife's really uncomfortable with, like delegating. Like,
yeah,
it's really important to us that we look after our own kids, and we don't have a nanny or that kind of thing.
Awesome. Yeah,
I just think that's if you choose to have kids, then look after your kids.
I agree with you. I think that's really important, and it's not always feasible for everybody. I'm sure you've got a lot of employees that can't do it. But,
I'm very aware that there's people that are, they're not lucky to have parents around that can help them, and they need to go interstate for work or whatever, and you need to engage people to look after your kids. I get that. I'm more just saying, like, if we're going to delegate something, let's delegate cleaning,
something else.
And garden maintenance and gutter cleaning and house maintenance, not child rearing. But that's just me. Everyone's different.
But for a home lawn that's under quarter acre, you can get a robotic mower that will do a fair chunk of your lawn, as long as it's not too steep or full of obstacles. Then it's pretty straightforward to get a robot that will do it. Yeah. $2,500 or even $2,000 starting price these days.
My mowers all cost that anyway. Like my mowers are all $2,500 minimum. I've got Bushman was 2,200. My Scotty cost me $5,000. Like yeah. Are you finding that the clippings being left aren't affecting the lawn in a negative way, or you just have to scarify more regularly, or?
So that's an interesting thing. For the majority of it, I'm going to say it's not a problem. On my own personal lawn, I have recently done a little bit of scarification around the edges, because where the robot doesn't get right up to the edge, you sort of get a bit fluffy and take it out.
But you're just not doing that as regularly, right? Like it's like you're not mowing, you're just having to go out and give it a decent scarification a bit more regularly. But
well, I've done it once in 2.5 years.
That's not bad. My lawn would have to do that anyway.
Yeah, so it's worth getting somebody to do a scarify for you, just to give it a tidy up around the edges where it might get spongy. And it depends on the type of grass you cut too. So I try and cut mine down to about 20 mil, so it's pretty low for a robot.
Yeah, how low can they go? Like are they like proper like golf course green, or we're not there yet?
So most people won't even have a clue where the height difference is. I'm going to say what I do for work, 2.5 inches is an average lawn. So
Wow.
you're talking fairly deep, not as deep
60
as
to 70
Americans,
Wow.
but I like to cut something that's residential a little bit lower than 2.5 inches.
Yeah.
Most people won't go lower than 2 inches.
No shit.
But if you're cutting with a cylinder mower, you're probably cutting around 20 mil to 30 mil.
Yeah, that'd be right. I've got mine pretty high.
Yep.
I used to cut too low and it just destroyed it.
You had a golf course, and you're talking 15 mil for 15 to 25 mil for the fairway, and then you're talking 3 to 6 mil for the good stuff.
Yep. So there's no robot doing 3 to 6 mil yet.
No, so I think down around 15, 10, maybe 10 mil is probably the lowest you get. I found 20 mil is pretty hard to get past with a robot, just for two reasons. Most people are not going to have a bowling green finish. They haven't done leveling to the...
so it's driving over stuff and
Yeah, so that presents a problem. When I go down to 20 mil, I find that it starts getting really hard to cut it tidy. It looks great, but the moment you get a lot of rain, and in East Coast we get unpredictable rain, it's a lot more than what most of Australia gets.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So some of mine just look like a patchwork quilt or a spider web where the lawnmower's cut a track in, but it hasn't cut the rest of the grass, and it's just that's one day's growth.
Yeah, no, that especially with the fast growing varieties, right? Like, if there's a lot of kikuyu, and I guess you've got warm climate as well.
Yeah, well, we've got in New South Wales, the average lawn is a mix of three: buffalo, cooch, and kike. So those areas where I've been cutting down around 20, 25 mil, I've bumped them up to 40 mil, most of them. There's one in particular I've kept it at 25 mil, just because the heaviest people in the company walk across it and they want it looking spotless. So I've just kept it that way. And it looks great. But the rest of them are up around 40 mil, and at 40 mil, it tends to cope with the varying growth a lot better.
We're seeing landscape designs come out now with the lawnmower recess actually in the design. So they're actually designing gardens now where the lawnmower has a space to kind of disappear when building new gardens, which is really cool. And something you never thought you would have seen 5 or 10 years ago.
Well, I'm not in design, but I've certainly looked at a number of areas I look after and go, wouldn't it be good if we had a little passageway for the lawnmower to get in between this area and that area? Or, like you're saying, like an area that is specifically for a robot to have docking, charging area.
It lives in there. It's like a dog kennel for the mower. And it might be that the shed's got a recess built into it. It just goes into the shed from the outside,
Yep.
Yeah, it's I don't know if we... I struggle with it. I don't enjoy mowing my lawn, but I know it's important because I like it to look nice, and I can't let it go. But I also happen to own an irrigation business and a fertilizer business, and so I feel like that might be a limiting belief that I've got this that people expect me to have a nice lawn. But
well, a robot is a great way for you to keep on top of it without putting in the effort.
Honestly, I think that I'll probably hire a greenkeeper to do my lawns and just find someone that works on a golf course that we deal with that lives near me. And just say, like, on your way home twice a week, give it a mow, I'll give you some cash.
Yeah. But there's a couple of independent contractors around your area that will do a cylinder mow, top quality finish. So I'd certainly recommend one of those.
Well, I've got the mowers. That's the thing. I mean, they can bring their own, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of those guys that's already doing that work regularly, he already has all the gear. He knows what the expectations are. And I'm sure he'd probably use some Lawn Hub gear too. If he,
I'll get a better result because I'm always rushing. I've got 40 minutes to mow my lawn, and it's just like,
yeah. Well, I know what it's like because before I put a robot on my place, I was cylinder mowing it, and I was literally doing it 2 or 3 times a week just because that's what required with the cylinder mower, and I didn't want to put PGR down.
Yeah, I can't because my lawn's always dying.
Yeah.
So because the dog the glyphosate would piss on the back lawn. I don't want to put PGR down just because I want that to grow back in. But my front lawn, which is a fescue blend, still doesn't have. It's not fully grown in. It's taken a long time. And then I once a year I happen to kill it somehow with like an over application of granular fertilizer or an underwatering after putting a wetting agent on. It's just I'm not meant to have a nice lawn. Maybe that's a limiting belief.
Well, I think this comes back to the whole topic that we've come to you with today is this is where people like myself get fanatical about, hey, I've got the solution for you. But they don't have a solution for hiring, and they don't have a solution for growing their business beyond 1 or 2 people. Are you thinking of leaving your job to start a profitable and enjoyable lawn and garden business? Aussie Lawn Stars shares stories, lessons, and advice to help you grow a healthy, productive, efficient, and sustainable business. Got questions or want more information? Contact Aussie Lawn Stars at iCloud.com or reach out to Gary Ashton on Facebook or Messenger for personal help. But beware, your question may end up in a podcast episode. For business coaching that ensures the right mindset and decision-making approach, check out Think Tank Coaching. Their website is https://thinktankcoaching.com.au. They've been instrumental in helping me and can guide you towards achieving your business goals. You can also email them at thinktankcoaching@outlook.com.
Look, there's I reckon there's a book, and this is probably a great one for your listeners, because it's an inexpensive way to go self-educate, especially most of the people you're talking to listen to things, right?
It's probably a book I've already recommended, but go for it.
It's by a guy called Dan Martell. It's called Buy Back Your Time.
Oh, okay. I haven't had that one.
So Dan Martell is a US-based entrepreneur who was in the tech industry, the software industry, and just started to see the world through a lens through software. Interesting guy. He's got some really good stuff on YouTube, but the book probably would help people step through the processes of hiring, like how to identify the hire, how to identify, what stuff like the stuff I was talking about before. Like, do you need to hire someone to do the art, or do you need to hire someone to do the science? And where are you actually spending your time? I mean, the gist of it is go through, identify where you're spending your time, put value against it from a dollar standpoint and a frustration standpoint. So is it stuff that you enjoy doing, or is it stuff that you hate doing? And what would it cost to have someone else do it? So if you were to hire someone to do it, and if you do that over a couple of weeks or a month, you'll start to see that you're spending a lot of time doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing, or that it doesn't bring you joy, and that you can either use a virtual assistant, which is a lot more readily available now than it was 10 years ago, or engage someone, like you said, that could work from home for 10 hours a week to handle the things that you're not doing well. Look, I'm still working this out. Like my wife's now my assistant,
okay,
which brings its own complexities. But well, the challenge is we holiday together. So if I'm away, she's away. So now all of a sudden my emails aren't being watched for a month because we're on a family holiday. But then also, we try to find some kind of balance between work and home. So if she doesn't see me all day and then she wants to ask me questions about things or follow up on something, then it's at home. But we're getting better and better and better at it. And I hate email. So I'm at a point where I'm probably 90% finished with email. And when I say finished with email, the goal will be that I don't touch an email until she's touched it first. And so and the people that we're talking about that are working on site, that are mowing and doing maintenance, it's very likely they've got a similar brain to me around email. They don't want to do it. The last thing they could think of wanting to do at the end of the day is sitting in front of a computer for 2 hours, processing invoices, responding to stupid emails from clients or suppliers, chasing money and all this shit that, not because they don't have the money, just because they don't value paying that bill. They want to go mow the lawn. So I think if you can find someone to do that for you and set your this book is really good for that, actually. It's probably the perfect book to cover your like the hiring concern. And then all of a sudden you hire someone and they'll do the things that you hate doing, and then all of a sudden you've got all this time to do other things. And one of the things he does talk about in the book is if you do replace you, and make sure that you have a preparation to fill that time with something else. Don't just leave it empty, because you've effectively just wasted
money as well.
Well, you're paying someone to do stuff, and then you'll find a way to fill that gap by drinking it, or eating bad food, or lying on the lounge, or scrolling the internet, watching TikToks. And it depends what you want. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what makes you happy, go for it. But I think the question you're asking is for people that are trying to improve the quality of their life.
There's a place for having some downtime. I spend my downtime riding motorbikes, and yeah, I'm tempted to watch TikToks as well. But it's like, hang on a minute, motorbikes or TikTok? I'll go to
Well,
motorbikes.
if that's scheduled, if you put that in your calendar, that you're going to scroll and I would love to see what your feeling would be when you actually scheduled an hour in your calendar to watch TikTok, because you'd be like, ugh. But you'll do it. But if you
Yeah.
actually put it in your calendar, and he talks about this in the book, then when you go and say, I'm gonna scroll TikTok now instead of going for a ride on my motorbike, you've actually made it really clear that you've chosen, like you've said yes to something else, so you're saying no to something else.
Yeah, that's true.
And so it makes it so they're using your diary as an accountability thing, which makes sense. Like the world you live in, your calendar is so important. Like where you're going and what you're doing, and batching jobs together and making sure that you're in the right areas at the right time and you're finishing at the right time, and your clients know when you're going to be there. And so it's just taking that accountability to your clients back to yourself and making sure that you're scheduling time with your family or whatever. It might be personal fitness, might be doing some martial arts, it might be reading, could be TikTok. But
yeah, I think that's really good for people that struggle with addiction to sort of put their addiction in that schedule and go, okay.
Well, imagine scheduling like get drunk,
Yeah.
right, and then the next morning be hungover, and you're like, oh, doesn't look real good when you put it in your calendar.
Some people are going to see that as a win, but
well, if that's what you want to do, and that's the thing. I'm not here to I struggle with plenty of different addictions, and like the main one that I'm being pretty public about is alcohol.
Yeah,
and I'm getting better and better and better and better at my relationship with alcohol all the time. And I had a lot of limiting beliefs around me being the life of the party, and me being a good salesperson because I drank. And what I've done now is my calendar keeps me accountable to my alcohol consumption, because if I've got a busy morning or I've got something important to do, and this is recently I was in San Diego last week, and we had meetings, but we're also traveling with suppliers and we're at conferences, so there's just drinks flying all the time.
Yeah.
But if I knew I had to be somewhere at 8 o'clock the next morning, it wouldn't necessarily mean that I didn't drink. It just gave me something that I was conscious of. So my alcohol consumption was more moderate. And when I got back to the Airbnb we were staying at, I power sculled 3 liters of water with hydrolyte and everything to try and make sure that I was the best version of myself the next day. So I think my biggest unlock in the last 12 months would be using my calendar, making myself accountable to my calendar for everything. And I'm talking like my son's got a baseball tryout tonight that's in my calendar, so I know I have to go to that. We've had to cancel other things for it, but I know it's there. And then the next evolution of that is taking the management of that calendar out of my hands. So my assistant, my wife in this case, is the one that manages that calendar. So I don't put stuff in there. I send it to her.
That's a tough accountability partner.
Well, it is. And she's like she's non-judgmental. Like if I put in there, like I was at Live Golf with clients all day yesterday, day before, and I was drunk when I got home, but I had a big day Monday. Like I was onboarding a new CEO for the Master Landscapers Association. I had client meetings with people I'd never met before. And I can rock up in a t-shirt like a hungover piece of shit with my clients. But when I'm representing an association, it's not me, it's them. So I knew it was skull water time. Get hydrated and, be accountable to the calendar.
Look, I think when we start touching on addiction, we really do hit on the core reason behind a lot of our limiting beliefs. And I think that book you're talking about, Taking Back Your Time, is that what it's called?
Hang on, I've got it here somewhere. Where is it? Buy Back Your Time.
Buy Back Your Time. Highly recommend people look at reading books like that. The other one,
short audio as well. Like it was 8 hours maybe, but I listen at 1.2 speed, so it's.
I do audiobooks all the time as well. But the other one you mentioned last time is The Pumpkin Plan.
I love that.
Another great book to help people start thinking about their business rather than just their art. And Mike Michalowicz has got a few books along those lines. But
Profit First was one of the other ones. I think The Pumpkin Plan was the best. Profit First is good. The book that got me onto all the books was Built to Sell. That was it's an easy read. Like I think it should be mandatory reading in high school. There's a few books I think that about, but my son started high school 2 weeks ago, so now I'm in a position to go, well, don't worry about the education system as mandatory reading. This is what I think you should be reading.
Yeah. But yeah, take that back to something I was going to say this 15 minutes ago when I mentioned your podcast. I heard you say that, and I'm pretty sure it was you. Tell me I'm wrong.
If it's good, it was me.
You could build any business. If you were given here's the business model or here's the product, you could build any business and make it a decent, profitable, large business.
I think that's
and I
fair.
can't remember who you were interviewing when you said it, but it was a fairly recent one that you put out.
Yeah.
And I thought that
Sorry.
No, that's awesome. And it's proof from somebody like yourself who has done the hard work to say, yep, what is it, 4 or 5 businesses you're running now?
Well, we're down to 2, but it's WaterPro's got 3 locations, so you can call it whatever. But I sold Railways last year.
Yeah, okay.
So my time spent I'm the president of the Landscape Association, which takes a lot more time now than it used to, and then obviously Lawn Hub and WaterPro. But we're working on launching Lawn Hub in the USA. So
nice.
Two technically, but yeah.
Yeah, but you've proven that you can build it. And I heard one of your earlier podcasts where you said you were planning on hitting, was it $10 million or $100 million?
We've passed 10, yeah. No, so the goal was 100. And last financial year, I think we did 21.74 or something. It's on my LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I can so clearly see Lawn Hub being a $500 million business that having this $100 million goal kind of feels silly now. And I know that sounds pretentious and wanky and whatever, but the reality is Lawn Hub's grown to a $10 million business most of that growth's been in the last 36 months.
Right.
We understand the recipe for how to do it. We're making continuous improvements around everything, including marketing, manufacturing, packaging. So it's improving all the time. So the profitability is getting better, which gives us more money to spend on marketing. To do $10 million in Australia means, the simple multiplier in the US is there's 60 times more people. And obviously not every part of America is going to buy Lawn Hub for weather and maybe Christian religious beliefs. But it could be very easily a $500 million business and it's not easy. We have to go through the process and we have to, but I'll be back in America soon. We're looking at meeting with manufacturers in Texas, granular fertilizer manufacturers, and the UK. We're looking at Canada. We were in, like I said, I was in San Diego last week. Met a fertilizer manufacturer in Italy. So
yeah, nice.
It's now just about going through the motions and setting up how it all works. But it's exciting because I enjoy the process of growing a business, and so all the learnings that come from that, do we have lawnhub.com, lawnhub.com.au, lawnhub.nz, and lawnhub.uk, or do we have lawnhub.com and then just have subdomains for each country? And then how does the marketing work? And do we have an individual Facebook ad account? And then how do we set up governance? And what can we do in Texas that we can't do in California? There's all these unknowns that excite me because that's stuff I don't know. Right?
Yeah. Well, look, I put money on it. You could sell to the religious right in America, no problem.
I don't think anyone's as religious as they say. I mean, there's obviously extreme people, but
I'm Christian. I don't talk about it on my podcast all the time, but I do mention it. I'm a Christian, and I've got a cheeky business name for the podcast, and it's like it doesn't need to exclude anybody from anything.
No, I think, to be honest, and Christianity's in my mind is the most forgiving religion. It's legitimately you do what you want, you may be judged in God's eyes, but you do what you want. And the reality is, unless we were directly being really clearly derogatory, we just dance on the edge. And I'm really conscious of that.
Yeah, I think if you're derogatory towards Christians, that would totally
that's another thing, right?
that. But it's different to that. But yeah, bring this back around full circle. The business growth you have had, you're clearly focused on growing a business rather than art.
That's all. That's it. WaterPro regularly has a 25% growth on each financial year. So we set a budget at the start of the financial year. It gets chunked down into months, and then it gets chunked down into days. my team get a email from my admin every day or every work day saying how much sales we did the day before and how it graphs against the budget for the month.
Yeah.
I meet with my sales management team once a month to discuss the month that was, talk about the things that we did and didn't do, the numbers that we should have done that we didn't. Lawn Hub lost a lot of money in December, like $190,000.
Wow.
And that was because we didn't spend enough money on marketing. Now, that sounds funny. Like, we should have spent more money and we would have made more money. But and it's fine. We made a lot more money the month before, so it's not a problem. But this is just to highlight what can happen if you're not watching your numbers. Our budgeted turnover was $1 million. We did $500,000, but our budgeted ad spend was something like $230,000, and we spent $130,000. So we just didn't spend enough money. And so it's really important that for any business, big or small, like even sole traders, and they're probably the worst for not having a budget. Yeah, to have it all in, and like, what's the goal, right? And I've taken this probably this is the perfect thing to finish on. What's the goal? Okay, I want to be working 20 hours a week and making $100,000 a year, or I want to make sure that I'm at all my kids' sports days and I don't want to work weekends, or I don't want to work school holidays, or I want to earn $500,000 a year profit, whatever it is. Then map that out in a budget so you know exactly what that looks like. And then how does that get resourced? So are you going to use contractors? Are you going to hire people? Are you going to do all the work yourself? That's our business is no different. Like, Lawn Hub has a budget. We've got a top line revenue goal. We've got a cost of materials. We've got a cost of rent. We've got a cost of staff. We've got a cost of insurance. And then every day we look at certain metrics, and then every month we look at other metrics. And if it's out, we make adjustments. And, if you do that, you should succeed. And if you don't, it's either that the goal was badly set, or that you weren't reviewing it enough, or you didn't have the skills to do it, and then you need to go try and learn those skills.
Yeah, limiting beliefs are holding you back.
Well, there's limiting beliefs as well as you just don't know, right? Like, I guess you could say that I can't perform dental surgery because I've got limiting beliefs, but that's not the case. I haven't been to university to learn how to do dental surgery, right?
Sure.
So there's, I'm not doing public speaking more because I've got limiting beliefs. That's a fair comment. Because I haven't gone out and, talked to an agent or actively tried to do it. So
but I think bring this full circle, and I think what you're saying is a great point to finish on. Those limiting beliefs will stop you from exploring that option of becoming a dentist. And in this situation,
if it's
the person who's focused on the art, if they can learn to perspective shift and start going, okay, well, let's look at a budget for a $500,000 business, or a $5 million business, or a $10 million business. What does that look like? Then they can start perspective shifting and going and looking up audiobooks. We've mentioned a couple of them. Going and spending time listening to people like you. It used to be a case of going, I need to buy your time, Clint. So I want to have half an hour with you once a week. I'm going to have to spend a fair bit of money to get that. Now I can just go, Clint's got a podcast. I can listen to that, or I can get this audiobook that Clint recommended, and I can get the one Gary recommended. And all of a sudden you've got all of these resources, these mentors that are free, or $16.95.
Well, ultimately, most of them are free. Like, you could watch their stuff on YouTube and you'll get the same gist. You don't have to buy the book. Alex Hormozy is a great example. He puts most of his stuff out for free. He's an amazing business person. And I think he tries to sell his books for 99 cents and they wouldn't let him. He was trying to give them away. Because his goal, and if you understand how this all works, it's not about selling books. It's about being the most well-known person on planet Earth. And so when you do release a new product, everyone buys it.
Yeah.
And so I'll give everything away for free so that everyone knows, that's Clint from Lawn Hub, so that when we release a new liquid, I can go onto my social media and I've got whatever many followers and they all go buy it. That's how I make my money.
Yep.
I think, and most people that are in that space are really happy to share the information. There's no secrets, because once you get to a certain place in business, you're not scared that other people's success is going to take your success away. And that is a limiting belief, right? Like, if you do better, then I lose. It doesn't work like that. Like,
the competition is not that fierce.
Well, there's enough to go around, and I guess if you're good enough, or I think I'm good enough, then you'll win anyway. And the amount of stuff we share, like, we live streamed our Black Friday sale. We had a Black Friday sale here, and our Shopify dashboard was live on YouTube for 8 hours. It showed exactly what we sold all day. Now,
Nice.
no one else is that transparent. No one else is sharing that information.
No.
Yeah, because it's all about brand. That's all. And Lawn Hub, we own the brand, right? You can't copy it. Well, you can, and we'll sue you.
Yeah. Yep, fair. So, yeah, people listening that are looking at that daunting topic of growing their business, if you're interested, start looking at it from this different perspectives, start getting those systems in place and start listening to the people that will help you get it there.
There's an interesting thing that gets said a lot, and I think it connected to women in sport a lot lately, that you can't be what you can't see. And I guess to highlight how important it is for us to have women's A-League teams and women's AFL teams, because then my daughter can see that and go, that's something I can do. And it's no different to the business world, right? Like you talked about someone wanting to do 500,000 or 10 million or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
They can see it. They can go, well, that person did it. Why can't I do it? And I think that was probably a luxury I had when I started Water Pro, is that I'd worked in an irrigation business that was turning over just over $3 million before I left.
Yep.
And interestingly, when Water Pro got to $3 million, it stalled, and it did $3 million 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
And I truly believe it's because I'd never seen past that. I didn't know the next thing. And so you've got to be careful to make sure that you're resetting those goals when you hit them, because if you imagine being an Elon Musk or a Jeff Bezos or a Mark Zuckerberg and trying to make sure that you keep your goals, like no one else is setting goals. Like you're pioneering all the time. We're lucky that we're not in that space, because we can look at other people and go, well, they've done what we're trying to do. What was the path they took? And can I take the same path and try and make it my own? So,
I heard Martin Safidi say this on a podcast he did not too long ago. If you have a goal of $1 million turnover, once you get to that goal, the number's no longer relevant. And I think what I would look at in a service industry is change the goal from the number to something that is more relevant to what you want out of your business. So do you want to be in charge of 10 employees? Do you want to be servicing X number of clients? Do you want to be covering as much as you possibly can in your local area?
I guess I would look at it a little bit differently and go, what do you want?
Yeah.
Because 10 employees, it doesn't mean anything tangible.
It's kind of like aiming for $1 million. It's
an ego thing, right? Yeah. Whereas if the $1 million is because you've done a budget, like you want to retire at 50 and you've done a budget and you know how much money it's going to cost to pay all your houses off, send your kids to private school, go to Europe once a year, economy or business class, and then you reverse engineer it. And that just happens to mean that you have to do $1.8 million, and that $1.8 million can only be serviced at 32 hours a week of productive work, because that's how much your staff get with 10 employees, then that's why 10 employees makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just saying 10 employees because, I don't know, your mate's got 10 employees and he was able to buy a nice ski boat, it doesn't, So what's the actual goal and not the goal? Yeah. So that's how I see it.
Yeah. Well, Clint, thanks for your time. I think you've uncovered and unlocked a whole heap of topics there that
I hope so. I mean,
we could do a much deeper dive into them, but
I'll always do this. You call me, I'll do a podcast. I mean, I'm getting busier and busier, but I'll always make time to do it. I really enjoy talking about business. So if it helps one person kind of go, holy shit, that's right, I should just do that, that's wicked. So.
Yep. Well, you bring a deeper wisdom to these topics than what I can do on my own, so I will ask you back.
I appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for your time.
Take care. I'll see you soon.
See ya. Hey, you. Yes, you with the moist grass on your bare legs. This is a new year and a new podcast. I'm asking you to join me in some changes made just for you. I want listeners to join the new Facebook group for Aussie Lawn Stars, so you can give me feedback on existing episodes and content ideas for more episodes. But more importantly, it's a place you can ask questions. The simple questions may get answered by members in the group already, much like you would find in any community group. But the questions will fuel and feed future episodes. More importantly, if you ask a question in the group or on the YouTube comments section, you may get sucked into the dungeon where your question and you become a feature episode. In short, join Aussie Lawn Stars on Facebook, YouTube and Instagram to participate and engage with me directly and other listeners who want to help or be helped.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.